This is the latest edition of Front Up, and I'm Whitey Willauer, and I've got a great guest today, Dr. Tim Weld. You're a doctor, I gather.
Right.
Are you a practicing doctor?
I stopped in 2008.
Uh-huh. What kind of doctor?
I was a cardiologist.
Really? So if I had a heart attack, do you practice in the state of Massachusetts?
Not yet.
Oh, you're planning to?
No.
So how long have you been here on the island year-round?
We moved here permanently February 25 of 2010 when
Yes.
we sold the New York property.
Uh-huh.
And we've been coming here since 1982.
Oh, you're a Worcestershire.
Yes, absolutely. Qualified. All three of our children met their spouses here on Nantucket.
Really?
As youngsters.
And your wife, I think, is on the, what committee? She's on
the tick-borne disease,
disease,
Board of Health,
yeah.
Nantucket Community Association. I mean, I'm known as Helene Weld's husband.
I see. And how are you involved here in town?
I'm involved on 3 committees over at the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
and more recently as a health consultant to the Energy Study Committee.
Right. Which committees at the hospital are you on?
Safety, compliance, patient care assessment.
Oh, really?
And that sort of thing.
So what do you think of the hospital nowadays?
Oh, I think it's super. Super. I love the place.
And do you think it's the right size, or do you agree it might be better downscaling it a little bit?
I don't know the intimate details,
Yeah.
but from a walkthrough, one would think it could be made more modular and smaller.
Yeah.
But taking advantage of modern construction technology so that unused space over a long period of time could be converted to a separate use would be very valuable things to incorporate.
I know we had Margot Hartman on here, and she had some kind of idea of building a separate building out back, and maybe changing some things. But I think it was in the conceptual stage.
Right. Well, yeah. I would say anyone looking at the physical plant would say that we need a new hospital. I mean, it's an amazing thing to go through it. There are heroic things being done to keep it going. When it was constructed first, I mean, things as elementary as leaving piping below the structure in open air was not done. So they were covered in cement. So anytime you have a piping problem that's below the basement level, the jackhammers come in and you have to tear up all the cement.
I think they did that to the kitchen recently, didn't they?
The kitchen was inoperable for a while. I'm not sure what the problem was.
Yeah, yeah. So what are you doing with the Energy Committee? Tell me about that.
Well, I'm on the subcommittee for health.
Yeah.
And we are examining the health consequences of the potential wind turbine project at the Nantucket landfill. And we are inputting our information to the Energy Study Committee itself. And I don't know how much you want me to go into.
Well, whatever you feel like, yeah.
But it's a very interesting situation. The potential for a wind turbine at the landfill certainly has enormous precedent. There are enormous wind turbine farms in Denmark, in Germany, in Sweden, and these supply, for instance, Denmark currently gets more than 20% of all of its energy from wind turbines. And Germany is close and looking at 100% energy or fossil fuel independence.
Germany is?
Yeah, Germany is, by 2050.
Really?
And since they've taken a very dark view of nuclear, since the
That's
Fukushima
right, they
disaster.
shut down there.
They are going to close every nuclear plant they have by 2050.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know what's going to happen to Germany. If they have any of their wind turbines pointed upward, the whole country might float. but they're going to have enormous wind farm capacity over there. Now here we're talking about just one wind turbine.
Yeah, on Nantucket.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, if you look at the health consequences, you have to balance them with the health benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Army Corps of Engineers and the Harvard School of Public Health looked at the health benefits coming from wind turbines. And basically, if you have, there are lots of variables that will affect a number up or down, but if you have about 40 rated megawatts of turbines standing, in providing that level of power or close to it over the course of a year, will decrease premature death in citizens by 1. And so if you have a 468 megawatt wind farm, you're saving 12 lives a year.
Because of what?
Because of the reduction in the pollutants that are produced by combustion generators. That is coal-fired, oil-fired, gas-fired, and there's also nuclear. But the emissions from especially coal, which is the cheapest and the dirtiest, the coal-fired plants will emit oxides of sulfur and nitrogen, as well as particulate matter, which is very damaging to people who have airway disease or pulmonary disease, especially asthma or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And these are the people who will suffer premature deaths on exposure to these irritants, to say nothing of the fact that the oxides of nitrogen and sulfur, when airborne and get into the cloud atmosphere, when the rain comes down, it's acid, because you get the acids made from nitrous and nitric and sulfuric and sulfurous. Those acids come down very dilute, but it's enough to absolutely kill fish eggs. So
really?
You can paralyze trout reproduction in the Adirondacks with the generators that are in Chicago.
I see.
You know, you don't want to be east of a big bad generator, because the winds are predominantly west in this country.
Yeah, I remember when the dump was burning, when they were burning stuff out at the dump, and I lived to the northeast of it. I would get I could smell the dump from 3 or 4 miles away.
Right. And
you often had a difficulty in breathing on the days that they were burning, but now we don't burn anymore there.
Right.
And so now you're going to make a presentation, I gather, to the Board of Selectmen?
The Energy Study Committee is,
oh,
yes.
Okay.
And I'm the health consultant, so I'll be there.
You'll be there, yeah. What type of things would you be saying to the Board of Selectmen on the health issues?
Very good. Well, it'll be a précis of what I have just mentioned about the health benefits. Then basically I would like to present in the format of advantages and disadvantages, or perceived advantages and disadvantages. And you can make very good objective assessments of the health benefits. It's a little more difficult to make objective assessments of illness caused by wind turbines. But I can tell you that there is always going to be a segment of the population that is very annoyed by the presence of a wind turbine within their sight or auditory distance. We have, on Nantucket, we do have local statutes and laws relating to audible noise. That's what we can hear. There are no existing statutes now for infra noise, or sound levels that are so low, 0 to 20 cycles, so that the human ear basically can't hear them. And when you adjust for that frequency range compared to the audible range, you basically have to subtract 50 decibels from the power level in that range in order to get it to a comparable range to auditory. It's a big difference. But getting back to objective versus subjective, it's probably, from a physician's point of view, just as valid for a subjective or emotional disability as it is for having your head cut off, which is very objective. But when you are doing an objective analysis of somebody who is extremely annoyed about a wind turbine that's close by, you can't tell with objective testing that that person is in a state of disrepair. I mean, their vestibular function is fine, their auditory function is fine, and it's very difficult to find an objective criterion on which to say that they are disabled. But they get sleep deprivation and anxiety, nausea, tinnitus, which is ringing in the ears, headaches. All of those things cannot be measured. All you can do is ask the person if they have them, and these sickness categories are all basically self-reported to a physician. But Whitey, I'm telling you, when I was in practice and I had someone who was in a very sour marriage, it didn't take a whole lot of insight to see that that person was really agitated, and they were very annoyed. I mean, the very sight of the spouse whom they made the mistake of marrying was enough to get their blood pressure going up. And people in these stressful situations would be on blood pressure medicines and Valium and all sorts of things. And believe it or not, when they got divorced, very often the stress levels would come down. And someone once asked why divorces are so expensive, and the answer is that they're worth it.
So you're going to say that on Wednesday night?
No, I think I'll be a little more mundane.
I see. They're very, very clinical. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But when you get sound levels that are very high, well above 45 decibels, which is our nighttime noise limit here on Nantucket, when you get especially infrasound at extremely high levels, 140 decibels or higher. And please remember that the decibel scale is a log scale. So when you're going from 100 to 110 decibels, you are going up by a factor of 10. And if you go up 20 decibels, that's a factor of 100. So it's a rapidly escalating scale as you get to higher numbers. Now, no one knows what the disability coming from infrasound is either, because objective measurements have not shown there to be a definite negative effect until you get to military levels of infrasound. But we have many examples of citizens who are exposed to infrasound on a very prolonged basis. I mean, truck drivers, the 18-wheelers, engineers, locomotives, any heavy equipment, all of those people are being subjected to really high levels of infrasound. And, you know, every truck driver I've seen is somebody that looks pretty physically well put together to me, and I wouldn't want to mess with him. But if there is objective testing showing that there is vestibular dysfunction.
What's vestibular? That's the big word for me.
Right. Well, that's the three little semicircular canals in the petrous bone in your skull, which are hooked up to, those are the labyrinths, and they have fluid in them and little hair cells.
Okay, so it's auditory.
No, that actually has to do with balance.
I see.
But you can test for imbalance. There are standardized tests for that, and you can test for auditory damage. There are standardized tests for that as well. And there will be an occasional person who has auditory or vestibular damage unrelated to sound or infranoise exposure, but I am unaware of a wind turbine study with objective testing that has shown a difference related to noise or infrasound exposure or distance from a turbine. If one exists, I'd love to know about it.
Mm-hmm. I gather we had a bunch of people that went up to a similar turbine up in Berkshire East, a ski area,
right.
And they recorded the noise
right.
On their little cell phones or whatever they had,
right.
And the noise of the wind going by the cell phone was more than the noise of the turbine.
Right.
But you could hear them talking back and forth.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Remember, 45 decibels is very quiet.
Yeah.
And 35 decibels is dead silence.
Yes.
For most people.
Yeah.
Or close to it.
Yeah.
Now the Berkshire East was indeed a noisemaker, but it was not.
Did you go up there?
No, I did not. John and
John Stover.
John Stover and Karen Sinatra. And I think 2 people from Common Sense Nantucket.
Yeah.
So I think there were 4 of them up there. But yes, the noise of the conference, I've listened to each one of those videos that they posted. And the noise of the turbine at 800 feet was less than the conversation, for sure, that I could hear.
Yeah.
Now, if anyone is really curious about noise generation from a wind turbine, we have a source of noise right here on Nantucket at the high school. And you are welcome to go walk out and stand at the base of that turbine and see if you feel the ground shaking, and see if what you think of the noise level. I've done that, and I could not feel vibration. And at 100 paces, the noise had dropped off considerably. And standing in the plane of the blades, the noise was very, very slight, right under the tower. But at 100 paces, you could pick up some noise. At 200 paces, you could pick up a little more noise because the noise was going down toward the ground by that time. And by the time I got to the split rail fence over that separates Sanford and Seagrill on the other side of Sparks, there was a nifty wind blowing, and there was traffic going by from time to time. And I basically could not hear the turbine because of the masking effect of other noises. But anyone who wants to get their own dose of wind turbine generated noise, it's a great experience.
Of course, the human ear, if you're listening to an orchestra, you can pick out the violins or the oboe, or the oboe's easy, but you can pick out the instruments if you focus. So if I wanted to hear a wind turbine, I think I could probably focus if it's at all possible.
Right.
But otherwise, it would just not bother me in the slightest. And if I'm swimming in the morning, I can hear the boat over the horizon. I can hear that, but that's probably infrasound coming through the water.
That is correct. Water is a great conductor.
Yeah.
So if you have your ear underwater,
just down by the shore, I can hear that, and I say I can't see it, and then pretty soon it comes over the horizon. But yeah, so it's a very, very difficult and confusing issue, this audio aspect. But
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. No, it certainly is.
Finally, tell me, is there any other health issues that have popped up that are of significance? How about flicker? People have complained about flicker.
I think that's so overdone. It's just beyond belief.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to. There are only 2 times of day you could possibly get flicker, and that's when the sun is just coming up and when it's just going down.
Yeah.
Because you have to have the sun coming through the blades and impacting the target.
Yeah.
And it just can't do that when the sun is overhead.
Yeah.
Because it's coming straight down on the turbine and there's no flicker at all.
Mm-hmm.
So the flicker is going to occur only when those 3 things are perfectly aligned: the sun, the turbine blades, and the target. And that's going to occur for such a small aliquot of time.
What kind of time?
A measure of time.
I see.
that you know, and if it occurs on day 1, 2, 3, and 4, it probably is gone by day 5 because the sun will have rotated further northward or southward in its axis to the wind turbine. And I mean, I think that's close to ridiculous, but I don't think that the annoyance is close to ridiculous, because in every study that's done, there are some people who are extremely annoyed by wind turbines. And if you ask me what the level of interest is vis-a-vis, that is, wind turbine versus something like giving a single property owner access to a dirt road that allows direct access to the Old South Road, for instance, that doesn't impact a large community of people. It may impact one car one day when there's an accident, but the chances of that are very small. Whereas the question of the wind turbine brings up very intense negative feelings by a minority of people. But the question you have to ask is, does that mean we should or should not have a wind turbine? And the Board of Selectmen and the citizens of Nantucket have to make up their mind as to what the answer to that question is.
And more will be revealed.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, and it's been great having you here, and I look forward to hearing you next Wednesday as you are besieged with questions.
Right.
If they do besiege you, but anyway.
Well, we'll look forward to it. It will be an interesting engagement.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you, Whitey.
All right.